So we'll look at the papers on the programme now. Libération, we're looking at, or Députy's looking at really, at the beginning here. Of course, we're expecting those potential announcements from the French government in the next few hours that we've been telling you about. But this is the headline in Libération as the protests go on, Députy.
That's right. The protests go on, Stuart. The political crisis deepens. The government's sort of in damage control now, trying to figure out how to get out of this very, very serious crisis in France. Paramedics and students have now joined those rallies yesterday, blocking bridges and blocking several high schools. From Gilets Jaunes, that's yellow vests, to Gilets Jeunes, youth protesters, Libération says on its front page with a play on words headline there. Now, there's a lot of interest in this from the international papers because it does reflect a brewing anger that could have ripple effects across the world, given that the core of their concerns is social inequality. The Conversation, which is an Australian academic website, is quite sympathetic to the core concerns of the Yellow Vest movement, which it says is distinguished not just by its anger and violence, but also its disparate demands. Genuine Yellow Vest protesters feel, quote, neglected, oppressed and dominated. The promise of being able to live off one's income was not kept. I quote, how can the ideal of autonomy be achieved if the riches of society aren't shared out more widely? Anger is a very real emotion and we need to take this very, very seriously. That's what the Conversation says.
And you found some more conservative articles that are taking a particular aim, really, at Emmanuel Macron himself.
That's right, and especially for that decision that really sparked the beginning of the Yellow Vest movement, the fuel tax hikes. The extreme right-wing website Breitbart warns that the French president is heading for his, quote, green Waterloo. Viciously, the writer hopes that, like Napoleon, Macron will suffer humiliation, defeat, and possibly exile to a remote place because the protests, the writer says, are, quote, a product of his suicidal decision to embrace the globalist cause of green lunacy. Now, the Washington Examiner, that's also a conservative paper, is a little bit more tempered in its criticism of Macron, saying that his reason of climate change will only bring a reduction in the environment that's, quote, a tiny drop in the ocean compared to what the Chinese are pumping out in carbon emissions. The magazine says Macron's problem is that he hasn't been bold enough with his reforms.
Let's have a look at some other stories from the papers as well. We're going to take you to Hungary now. The closure of a university has prompted fears over academic freedom there.
The Central European University in Hungary was founded by the Hungarian-born American billionaire George Soros after the collapse of the Soviet Union, aiming to champion democracy and free societies. Well, now the New York Times reports that it's being forced out of Hungary. This after a nearly 2-year struggle with the conservative government of Viktor Orban, that the Times says continues to quash dissent and consolidate control over all aspects of Hungarian life. Most of the departments will now relocate to Austria. Some may stay in Budapest, but many are concerned about the effects that it'll have on academic freedom, given that Orban passed legislation that appeared to target this university in particular. One writer for a Hungarian daily called Blick says the university is exactly why political games should not mix with education. Orban's decision makes it clear that teachers, students, and academia are the big losers from this, and it's a, quote, luxury that we can't afford.
We've changed topic once. We're really going to change topics now. Jackie Chan, he's released a tell-all memoir.
I wasn't quite sure how to transition from Hungary to Jackie Chan, so I left it to you.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I sort of fumbled it. Carry on.
Fine. It seems to be quite a trend among celebrities now, their tell-all memoirs, and this one is a real doozy. In this tell-all, the martial arts actor admits to being, quote, a nasty jerk in the past. He talks about his struggles with drinking, with gambling, with prostitution, with prostitutes. He admits to fathering a child out of wedlock, and once, in a fit of rage, he recalls flinging his son across the room. These are really, really deep confessions. He also admits that he had a, quote, big chip on his shoulder in the early days of his career. He was quite unsure how to deal with his fame, how to use the money that he had suddenly come into because of his acting. His daughter, who is gay, by the way, is not mentioned in the book. She recently accused her parents of, quote, being homophobic.
There you go, interesting stuff from Jackie Chan. Netherlands now, this story got a lot of attention last month. It's a man who seized the courts to demand that he be able to change his age.
His real age, that's right, his real age is 69. Dutchman Emil Ratelband wanted to legally change his age to 49, citing that transgender people can change sex, so he should be able to change age, given that doctors confirmed his good health. A Dutch court has thrown out his legal suit, saying they cannot expunge 20 years of his life from the public registry, not even for one of his principal reasons for bringing this lawsuit, which was he doesn't get enough swipe lefts on Tinder.
Quite right. Finally then, we have a winner for the worst sex writing of 2018.
Yes, a very prestigious... No, it's not. No, okay. I'll tell you why it's not me, because the worst sex writing in 2018 is by all men.
Okay.
That's what Entertainment Weekly says.
What a surprise.
This year, James Frey, author of the controversial bestseller A Million Little Pieces, has struck again. He's won the Bad Sex in Fiction Award for, as I said, out of an all-male group. The jury saying he prevailed by, quote, virtue of sheer number and length of dubious erotic passages in his book. We had a look at some of those passages. It is definitely not suitable for reading on air. Oh. It also makes 50 Shades of Grey kind of pale in comparison, but not in a good way.
I'll have a little look at those when we get
I know, you're curious.
It's the papers, that's 24.